This is what I showed you in my slide. I showed you this tunnel. I told you there is another 3 tunnels. I will show you the 4th one. And this is what I found out, that as we look at the Sphinx.
How did ancient Egypt build the Great Pyramid? Well, that question has remained one of history's biggest mysteries for thousands of years. Despite having no modern machines, cranes, or advanced equipment, the Egyptians somehow built one of the greatest structures ever created. Many people believed it was only possible through massive manpower and endless hard work. But now, a surprising new discovery could completely rewrite that story. Did the Egyptians possess building secrets far ahead of their time? And could this discovery finally reveal how the impossible became reality? Join us as we uncover the truth behind this jaw-dropping discovery, the pyramid's hidden secret. For many years, people around the world wondered how the ancient Egyptians managed to build the Great Pyramid of Giza. Some believed it was impossible without modern machines. Others created wild stories about lost technology or even aliens. But a new study may have finally brought scientists much closer to the truth. Researchers created a detailed 3-dimensional model that shows how the pyramid could have been built using a hidden internal ramp. Instead of building large ramps outside the pyramid, workers may have created a special path inside the structure itself. This clever idea could explain how the Egyptians built one of the greatest monuments in history in less than 3 decades. The Great Pyramid was enormous. Each side of its base stretched about 755 feet, while the structure once stood nearly 481 feet tall. Millions of stone blocks were used during construction, and some of them weighed more than 60 tons. Moving such massive stones without modern equipment seemed almost impossible. That is why this new theory has captured so much attention. According to the study, workers may have left open spaces around the outer edges of the pyramid while construction was taking place. These openings formed a rising path that wrapped around the structure like a spiral. Workers could then pull stones upward through this hidden route as the pyramid slowly grew taller. As each section was completed, the open spaces were carefully filled in. By the time the pyramid was finished, the ramp had disappeared completely inside the structure. This explains why archaeologists never found clear signs of giant external ramps nearby. What makes this idea even more exciting is how well it matches the timeline of the pyramid's construction. The model suggests workers could place stone blocks every few minutes. Even after including breaks, transportation, and quarry work, the pyramid could still have been completed within the accepted historical time frame. The theory also explains several strange details that puzzled experts for years. Certain gaps inside the pyramid may not have been mistakes at all. Instead, they could have been part of the construction system itself. Areas showing signs of heavy wear may have been pathways used daily by workers carrying materials upward. Unlike older ramp theories, this model does not create major building problems or require huge amounts of extra material. Everything fits together in a way that feels practical, organized, and surprisingly efficient. How did the ancient Egyptians build something so massive without modern machines? Cutting the stones of the pyramids. Scientists already know where many of the stone quarries were located and how workers transported the massive blocks. Softer stones, especially limestone, were likely cut using copper chisels, drills, and saws. Harder stones, such as granite and basalt, were far more difficult to shape. Workers probably spent long periods pounding them with heavy dolerite stones while using sand to slowly grind and cut through the surface. Once the blocks were ready, they were likely placed on large sledges and pulled across the ground. Experts believe water was poured onto the sand in front of the sledges to make movement easier and smoother. The Egyptians also showed amazing skill when leveling the pyramid's foundation. Some researchers think they used trenches filled with water to measure flat surfaces. Others believe experienced surveyors used simple leveling tools with remarkable precision. Even without modern technology, the ancient Egyptians developed clever methods that allowed them to create one of history's greatest wonders. Now, let's take a look at how ancient workers moved millions of giant stones without modern machines. The surprising methods behind pyramid construction. One of the greatest mysteries surrounding the Egyptian pyramids is how ancient builders managed to transport enormous stone blocks without modern machines. The pyramids were built thousands of years ago, yet the scale of the work still seems unbelievable today. Historians and archaeologists have spent many years studying the problem, and while some questions remain unanswered, several discoveries now reveal how these incredible structures may have been built. An important clue comes from the tomb of Jehuti-Hotep from the 12th dynasty. Inside the tomb is an illustration showing 172 men pulling a giant alabaster statue on a wooden sledge. The statue is believed to have weighed around 60 tons. This image helped experts understand that large groups of workers using sledges may have been capable of moving extremely heavy objects across the ground. Researchers later studied how many workers would be needed to move such massive blocks. Experiments showed that a lubricated stone block could be moved with far fewer workers than many people expected. Wetting the sand in front of the sledges likely reduced friction and made transportation easier. This simple but clever method may have played a major role in pyramid construction. Some experts also suggested another possible method. A cradle-like wooden device may have been placed around stone blocks so they could roll forward more smoothly. Experiments with large concrete blocks demonstrated that groups of workers could successfully pull heavy loads up ramps using this technique. Although historians are still uncertain whether the Egyptians truly used this system, the experiments proved that such a method could work with stones similar in size to many pyramid blocks. However, the heaviest stones remain a mystery. While many experts accept these transport methods for smaller blocks weighing a few tons, there is still disagreement over how the Egyptians moved stones weighing several dozen tons. One of the most important discoveries about pyramid construction appeared in the diary of Merer, an Egyptian official who lived more than 4,500 years ago. His records were discovered in a cave near the Red Sea in the year 2013. The diary described how limestone blocks were transported by boat from the quarries at Tura to Giza. This discovery provided direct evidence that waterways played a major role in moving construction materials to the pyramid site. Most historians also agree that ramps were essential during construction. Archaeologists have found evidence of ramps near several pyramid sites. These ramps likely allowed workers to drag stone blocks upward as the pyramids grew taller, yet the exact shape and design of these ramps remain heavily debated. One theory once suggested that the Egyptians used one enormous straight ramp leading directly to the top of the pyramid. Over time, however, many historians rejected this idea because such a ramp would have been too massive, required huge amounts of material, and left little archaeological evidence behind. Other theories proposed zigzag ramps, spiral ramps, or ramps built around unfinished sections of the pyramid itself. Some experts believed spiral ramps may have wrapped around the outside of the pyramid as construction continued upward. However, this idea also created problems because the ramps would have covered much of the pyramid and made it difficult to maintain the monument's precise shape. Another possibility involved smaller ramps connected to the inner layers of the pyramid. These designs required less material and may have allowed workers to continue construction more efficiently. Stone blocks were likely pulled on sledges along these ramps, while water was poured onto the surface to help reduce friction. Recent studies showed that speed and organization were just as important as engineering. To complete the Great Pyramid within the accepted time frame, workers needed to place stones at an astonishing pace. Experts estimated that teams may have positioned around 1 ton of material every few minutes during construction. As the pyramid grew taller, the work became even more difficult. The higher levels provided less space for ramps and required workers to make sharper turns while transporting stones upward. This challenge may explain why certain pyramid designs changed during construction, including the unusual slope of the bent pyramid. Historians also believe the construction site itself was carefully organized. Different worker teams likely handled separate sections of the project. Special pathways may have been used for transporting stones upward, while other routes allowed workers and sledges to return quickly for the next load. Even after centuries of research, the pyramids continue to amaze the world. Every new discovery reveals more about the intelligence, planning, and determination of the ancient Egyptians. The ancient trick that helped raise the pyramids. For many years, historians believed ramps alone could not fully explain how the ancient Egyptians built the pyramids. As the pyramids grew taller, moving heavy stone blocks upward became much more difficult. This led experts to believe the Egyptians may have used another clever tool alongside ramps: levers. A lever is a simple device that helps lift heavy objects with less force. Ancient Egyptians already understood this idea through tools used to lift water for farming. Historians believe similar techniques may have helped workers raise pyramid stones to greater heights. Some experts think levers were mainly used near the top of the pyramid, where construction became more challenging. Even though the upper part contained fewer stones, it covered a large part of the pyramid's total height. Different levering methods have been tested over the years. One method involved slowly lifting a stone by raising one side at a time and placing wooden or stone supports underneath. Workers repeated the process until the block reached the next level. Experiments showed this could successfully move large stones upward within a short period of time. Other researchers tested larger lever systems that could raise a block in a single movement. One experiment lifted a heavy stone to the next course in less than a minute. These tests proved that simple tools, careful planning, and teamwork could achieve incredible results without modern machines. The Nile River also played a major role in pyramid construction. Thousands of years ago, a branch of the Nile flowed much closer to the Giza pyramids than it does today. This waterway helped workers transport huge amounts of stone and supplies by boat directly to the construction area. In recent years, scientists discovered evidence of an ancient branch called the Aramat branch. Using satellite images and soil studies, researchers found that this massive waterway once stretched near many pyramid sites. It was wide and deep enough to carry large boats loaded with building materials and workers. Over time, drought and desert conditions caused the river branch to disappear. Today, the Nile flows much farther away from the pyramids, hiding the important role the river once played. Although some people suggested the Egyptians used water locks to lift boats, historians have not found enough evidence to confirm this idea. But how did thousands of workers build something so perfect? And how many men did it take to create such a massive structure? The massive workforce behind the Great Pyramid. For many years, people imagined huge crowds of slaves struggling under the hot Egyptian sun to build the pyramids. But modern research tells a very different story. Historians now believe the workers who built the Great Pyramid were highly organized, skilled, and carefully managed. Experts still debate the exact number of workers involved. Some researchers believe the workforce may have reached 50,000 men, while others estimated much smaller numbers. Many historians today think no more than 30,000 workers were needed to complete the Great Pyramid. Evidence suggests that around 5,000 workers were permanent employees who received regular food and support. Other workers likely joined for short periods as part of a labor system connected to taxes. In return, they received daily supplies such as bread and beer. Only a small part of the workforce moved and placed the heavy stones. Most workers handled support duties that kept the massive project running smoothly. Scribes recorded supplies and work progress. Tool makers created and repaired equipment. Supervisors organized teams and assigned tasks to skilled groups of laborers. The workers were divided into organized units. Large crews were separated into smaller gangs and each group had specific responsibilities. Some teams hauled stones, while others prepared surfaces or managed transport routes. Every group worked together like parts of a giant machine. Construction experts later studied the Great Pyramid using modern management techniques. Their research estimated that the project may have required an average workforce of over 14,000 people, with larger numbers during the busiest periods. According to their calculations, the pyramid could have been completed in about 10 years. The scale of the work was astonishing. Historians believe more than 2 million stone blocks were used during construction. Workers may have placed several blocks every minute during long workdays. Even more impressive, they achieved this without pulleys, wheels, or iron tools. Despite these limitations, the pyramid was built with incredible precision. The foundation was leveled with remarkable accuracy across the entire site. Modern experts compared the achievement to the precision expected in modern construction today. This continues to amaze engineers and historians around the world. The Great Pyramid was also only part of a much larger building effort across the Giza Plateau. During the rule of several pharaohs, workers constructed pyramids, temples, causeways, boat pits, and the Great Sphinx within less than 100 years. Earlier generations had already completed several other massive pyramids before Giza itself was built. In recent years, archaeologists discovered the remains of an ancient ramp system at Hatnub. The system included a central ramp with staircases and wooden posts that helped workers pull heavy stone blocks up steep slopes. Experts believe this method may have also been used during the construction of the Great Pyramid. The more researchers learn about ancient Egypt, the clearer it becomes that the pyramids were not built through mystery, but through brilliant planning, teamwork, and extraordinary human skill. But did ancient historians finally reveal how the pyramids were built? The ancient stories behind the pyramids. The pyramids of Egypt have fascinated people for thousands of years. Long after the age of the pharaohs had ended, ancient historians tried to explain how these enormous monuments were created. Two of the most famous writers to describe the pyramids were Herodotus and Diodorus Siculus. Although they lived centuries after the pyramids were built, their writings became some of the earliest historical accounts about the construction of these wonders. Herodotus visited Egypt during the 5th century before Christ. He described the Great Pyramid as a structure built in stages, almost like giant steps, rising toward the sky. According to his account, workers used short wooden levers to raise heavy stones from one level to the next. A block would first be lifted onto the lower step, then raised again onto higher levels until it reached its final position. His description suggested that simple wooden machines may have helped workers move enormous stones upward without modern technology. Herodotus also believed the upper part of the pyramid was completed before the lower sections were fully finished. Although historians still debate how accurate his account truly was, his writings remain one of the earliest attempts to explain pyramid construction. Several centuries later, Diodorus Siculus also wrote about the pyramids. He believed the stones were transported from the region between the Nile River and the Red Sea, an area called Arabia, in ancient times. Modern historians now know that important limestone quarries existed near this region, making his description partly correct. Diodorus explained that huge earthen ramps were likely used to raise the stones during construction. He also wrote stories claiming the ramps disappeared after being washed away by water. However, he did not fully believe those explanations. His writings described the pyramids as the result of massive human labor carried out over many years. During the early dynasties of ancient Egypt, pyramids were built mainly from limestone. Builders used local limestone for the inner structure, while finer white limestone from Tura was chosen for the outer casing. This bright outer layer once gave the pyramids a smooth and shining appearance, under the Egyptian sun. Granite from Aswan was also used for important sections inside the pyramids, including burial chambers and heavy stone barriers. Some pyramids even used granite as part of the outer covering. The earliest pyramids were built with stone layers that sloped inward. Later builders changed this method and began laying stones horizontally. Historians believe the bent pyramid at Dashur shows the moment when Egyptian builders shifted from one technique to another. As time passed, pyramid construction methods changed again. During the Middle Kingdom, many pyramids were no longer built entirely from stone. Instead, builders often used mud bricks covered with polished limestone. Some pyramids were even constructed on top of natural hills to reduce the amount of building material required. These later pyramids did not survive as well as the older stone pyramids. The earliest pyramids remained stronger because of their heavy stone construction. Mortar also played an important role in pyramid building. The stone blocks were not perfectly shaped, so workers filled the spaces between them using gypsum mortar mixed with rubble. Although the mortar did not strongly bind the stones together, it helped stabilize the structure. Producing this mortar required large amounts of heat, which meant enormous quantities of wood were burned during construction. Some researchers believe Egypt may have used nearly every available source of wood while building the Great Pyramids. Modern carbon dating studies later created confusion because some materials from the pyramids appeared older than expected. Historians believe this happened because workers may have reused old wood during construction. The ancient Egyptians also possessed advanced knowledge of metalworking. One of their most important materials was arsenical copper, a stronger form of copper mixed with small amounts of arsenic. Workers used this metal to create tools for cutting and shaping stone. Repeated hammering made the tools even harder and more effective. Today, many mysteries about the pyramids still remain, yet every discovery continues to reveal the intelligence, creativity, and engineering skill of the ancient Egyptians, whose achievements still amaze the world thousands of years later. If you enjoyed this video, like